So my name is Mark van Rijmenam, also known as the digital speaker. I talk about digital transformation, emerging technologies, and how they change organizations, society, and recently also the metaverse. I'm a future tech strategist. I've written 3 books on big data, blockchain, artificial intelligence, and I'm the founder of Dataflock, a content platform around these emerging technologies. And as I will share later on, I've just went down the rabbit hole of the metaverse, which is a fascinating new future version of the internet that's coming our way. And it's a pleasure to be here. Quantum computing is, of course, as you say, the next big thing in society. You can say, it's the next level up from the computing power that we have in our world. And the interesting thing about quantum computing, it's sort of where you see different technologies converging, and that's also my main focus in my business is what happens when different technologies are converging. And I think when quantum computing is really here, and you see the developments, the big tech companies, but there's also several startups really working hard of creating quantum computers with more qubits. We've seen China announcing already, a quantum computer that can solve problems in a couple of hours that a normal supercomputer would take 10,000 of years. And this is only going faster. So once we have cracked the problem of a quantum computing, we can solve, very, very challenging problems such as climate change, such as understanding the weather better, such as understanding the universe better, and we can use it and do that in a much shorter time frame. Now, of course, quantum computing also comes with its challenges because it makes sort of every encryption that we have at the moment breakable because the current encryption methods are used to focus on a normal supercomputer will take hundreds and hundreds of years to break that, but a quantum computer can do that in a mere seconds or mere minutes or hours, depending on what kind of quantum computer you have. So that is a big problem that organizations should focus on, ensuring that they are quantum proof, that they have their encryption is quantum proof, because otherwise, we have tons of problems coming our way in the next decades or so. Since a couple of weeks, we've all heard about the metaverse. After Mark Zuckerberg announced a name change from Facebook to Meta, all of a sudden the metaverse is a massive hype and a massive buzzword. It is literally the next iteration of the internet. So we had Web 1.0, which is very much focused, the very standard internet that arrived in the 2000s. Then we had Web 2.0, which is social media, but also you can sort of see it as the mobile internet. Now we are moving towards the next iteration, which is the immersive internet, which basically means we are starting to converge the virtual world and the physical world. Some call this also, in a beautiful way, the phygital world, the physical and the digital world. I think it's a bit of a horrible word, but nevertheless, what it happens is that the metaverse allows us to create this new way of collaborating, this new way of experiencing the world, a new way to meet up with people, to experience brands. And so it uses, among others, a combination of virtual reality, augmented reality, that allows you to experience the world in 3D, the digital world in 3D. And the interesting thing is that once we are moving that way, and it still takes quite a long time before we've reached the vision that Mark Zuckerberg mentioned when he shared his vision, probably another 5 to 10 years before we have a fully immersive layer on top of reality. But once we have that, then all of a sudden we can be together while being apart, and not through a Zoom call or a video call, but literally be in the same room as an avatar or as a hologram. And that is, of course, beneficial for social context because you don't have to use Zoom anymore. But it's also beneficial for work, because if you want to work on a car, for example, design a car, but you are geographically apart, you can actually be in the same room, working on the same car, and seeing how that car is going to pan out once it is finished, before it's even being built. So I think that is a very, very interesting part. And the metaverse really is a convergence of all the technologies that I've been covering in the past decade. Big data, blockchain, very, very important part if we want to create an open metaverse. But also NFTs, also the hype of 2021, and also artificial intelligence and IoT. So it sort of brings all these technologies together and creates a new layer where we are only bound by our own imagination. Thank you very much. It's a great question to see if cryptocurrencies are going to take off in 2022. And we have cryptocurrency since 2009 when Bitcoin arrived, and it's been a long journey, and we've had our bumps in the ride. We've had our scams, we have had our ICOs, we have had all-time highs, all-time lows. The cryptocurrency world is very, very volatile, and I probably think that will stay quite a while in the next years to come. But cryptocurrencies, and with that link to it, also the NFTs. I already mentioned it. Also, a very hype of this year. They have true potential for society because they are in the end tokens that are programmable. They are programmable money. They are digital assets that you can program. And I think that those characteristics that come with cryptocurrencies are fascinating. You can transfer assets, utility, money instantly across the globe without being dependent on intermediaries. So we're moving from a world where we are dependent on big tech, on big corporations, on big banks who are too big to fail, and we are going to a world where we are able to do peer-to-peer transactions, whether this is transacting money, whether this is transacting real estate, whether this is buying digital fashion in the metaverse, whether this is art. It doesn't really matter, and I think that is shows you the enormous potential that this has for society to create, I think, a better society. And yes, we have our challenges with NFTs. Yes, we have our challenges with cryptocurrencies. But I think in the years to come, once we are able to overcome these challenges, the cryptocurrencies and NFTs, which I think are a prerequisite for the metaverse, will bring tremendous benefit to society as well as to organizations. Great question. Brain computer interfaces are also sort of the next way we deal with computing. I'm saying computing because it doesn't have necessarily have to be a computer, but the way we will deal with the internet, so to say, whether that's the immersive internet which is coming or the current internet. And I recently was able to try out a wearable BCI brain computer interface device, which I literally just placed on my head here, and I was able to control my computer. I was playing a game, ping pong. I was changing channels on my TV, all with my thoughts. And I think that's fascinating because it allows you to sort of give you a lot more freedom, especially if you start to combine it with, for example, virtual reality. Or, as what Neuralink is trying to do, the company founded by Elon Musk, where they're really trying to do an invasive BCI, so they're implanting actually a chip inside your head and connecting it to your brain. It allows you to do to help also, for example, paralyzed people. And we've seen the first examples already where a man, I think it was in America, was able to write, was paralyzed from the neck down, was able to write at 90 characters per minute by just thinking of the characters of his handwriting and creating them. And that shows you the enormous potential that we can give these kind of people who are paralyzed back their freedom. Now, again, with any technology, it has positive and it has downsides because if this technology is, for example, used by a big tech, Meta, for example, fortunately they stopped their program in this, but it creates tremendous amount of data that they can use. That our closest, our most personal data, our thoughts, and if we are able to translate that from using a BCI and to send it to a company, now we have very, very serious ethical and privacy issues. That's kind of things that I think about because I think we need to. This technology is beautiful, but we need to do it in the right way. But BCIs are coming. It's still again also early days because it's very, very hard technology. But with these convergence of quantum computing, of artificial intelligence, of BCI, we are literally living in exponential times, and the developments are going faster and faster. And before you know it, we are communicating by thought instead of by email. Yes, totally. I'm very glad that you asked me the question of what are the ethics of technology. And in fact, I've recently started a new podcast which is called Between Two Bots, together with Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleRain, and we are using this podcast to tell the story of how do we create ethical AI? How do we build AI that is unbiased, fair, and responsible? three characteristics of AI, which is very very challenging to achieve. And in this podcast, we discuss with thought leaders, experts, entrepreneurs, about this topic of how do we create a world where AI is ethical, and that's such a difficult question, because what is ethics? What's ethical for you is not necessarily ethical for me, and what's ethical today is it might be different in 50 years from now. But we are building the tools today for to last for a long time. So it's a very very difficult topic, and where we need to have this discussion, because as I mentioned, technology is neutral. We can use it for good and we can use it for bad, and it's up to us humans how we behave, how we use the technology, how we apply the technology, what the impact of that technology will be. But yeah, it's a very important issue and something that I think deeply about, and I am worried about it, but I'm also positive by all the developments that I see happening in the world, trying to create ethical AI, try to companies working on using technology in an ethical way. So what is next for me? It's actually very very exciting. I mentioned at the beginning that I stepped into the metaverse myself. Actually, I have my own avatar. I have my own hologram. So for keynotes, I'm also available as an avatar or as a hologram, because I am, after all, I am the digital speaker. So I'm available in all these new and emerging formats. But I'm also actually at the moment writing the book on the metaverse. It will be published by Wiley in 2022, early 2022, called "Step into the Metaverse," and it will discuss how the metaverse is literally going to change our world, how it's creating a trillion-dollar social economy. And in the book, I will describe not only what the metaverse is, obviously, but also how our identity changes in the metaverse, what avatars are and how they work and how you can benefit from it. But also how brands should interact with the metaverse, how the retail or the sport industry or the entertainment industry or the music industry or whatever industry will be fundamentally changed, and that it requires also these organizations to take a deep dive and to prepare. It's the same. The metaverse is the same as social media, and as the internet when it started in the 2000s. If you don't participate, you will lose out. So I will cover that. I will also dive into the enterprise metaverse. How is it going to change the future of work? How is it going to enable collaboration, as I just mentioned before? Where you can collaborate while being apart. What are the economics of the metaverse? Because how are we going to build a rich and vibrant economy? And finally, of course, I will also talk about the dangers of the metaverse, because yes, we've seen the dangers of the current web, the current internet, from hackers, scammers, malware, the dark web with its problems, etc. Those will only get worse in the metaverse, where you have deep fakes of avatars that you don't know who is who, where you have more misinformation. So all the problems that we already have will only get bigger in the metaverse. And I will discuss how we can actually, as a society, try to fight that, try to stop that, and actually build an open metaverse, a decentralized metaverse that is inclusive to everyone.